We are live, guys. Get the Facts with Folan, episode 15. We're cruising through. We have officially done a week of this. How crazy is that? A week of quarantine is even crazier. It's almost been 2 weeks of quarantine. So today, got a fun episode for you. One of my new travel buddies that I met in Bangladesh. He is currently in Malaysia and he just joined. So let's get him in. He lives on the island of Borneo. If you don't know about it, you're going to learn a lot today because it is an amazing spot to travel. So let's add Nate in. Fingers crossed his Wi-Fi works. Perfect. There he is. Nate, how's it going, man?
Yeah, good. How are you, Brent?
Good, good. All right, so introduce yourself and tell everybody where you are, and then we can talk about how we met.
Sure. So I'm Nate. So I'm originally from Malaysia, which I currently am, but I'm currently living or am living in the UK and working as a doctor.
And you you moved there, so you grew up, right? You split your time growing up. You're born in Malaysia. Uh-oh. So you're bouncing back and forth. Hopefully this Wi-Fi holds up. So you were born in Malaysia. When did you move to the UK?
I went when I was 15 with my family, so we all migrated there. But for whatever reason, we're now back in Malaysia together. For
Yeah.
me, it's just a vacation after Bangladesh, but for most of my family, they are here long term now.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And you're not in the city, you're in Kota Kinabalu, right? KK?
Correct, in Borneo, yes.
Which is the third largest island in the world, guys. A very, very good gem of Southeast Asia. It's if you like wildlife, that is the place to go. The Malaysian part of Borneo is so nice. But we'll dive into that in a second. Just real quick background, Nate and I met just a few weeks ago in Bangladesh before the madness absolutely hit the just crushed the world. Got to celebrate Holi together in Dhaka. Had the
Yes.
same couch surfing host,
Yep.
so it was fun spending a couple days together and clearly staying in touch. So it's what Nate, what's going on in Malaysia right now? We've read that like the borders are closed because Singapore does rely on Malaysia quite a bit, but
Mm.
it's been interesting hearing about it here. But in your perspective, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so Malaysia has implemented a travel ban, which started on the 18th of March and was meant to last for 2 weeks, which so it was meant to end today, but the government has since prolonged the travel ban in order to try to put a maximal effort to flatten the curve for
Right.
coronavirus. So like I said, I was born here, but I live in the UK. And contrasting the two countries at the moment, in the UK, there's about 22,000 cases that's confirmed with a death toll of 1,400.
Yep.
Whereas in Malaysia, we have about 2,600 cases with about 37 deaths that have been reported. So
Okay.
we're not doing as bad as the UK, but looking more specifically to Southeast Asia, we are still having the most cases as compared to other countries like Singapore or the Philippines.
Yeah.
But I think with the implementation of the travel ban and the curfews for going outside to buy groceries and other food necessities, I
Yeah.
think everything was implemented fairly swiftly, and I think that I'm remaining very optimistic that things will turn out better in the coming weeks.
Yeah, yeah, because so Katie and I were supposed to, well, in tomorrow, I was supposed to be flying to Indonesia, and then in a couple months, we're supposed to be heading to Malaysia. So
Right.
hopefully things get solved. As when it comes to, so are you guys in the country's borders are closed? Is everything in
Mm.
lockdown? Like, or is there a curfew implemented? Like,
So
what's it been
yeah,
like?
sure. So everyone has been encouraged to stay at home
Yeah,
as much as was possible, and there's actually disincentives to leave house. So even interstate traveling. So if I wanted to go to Kuala Lumpur tomorrow, for instance,
yeah,
or the day after that, that's not going to happen unless there's any sort of extreme circumstances, like I need medical attention, or if one of my loved ones, that people are permitted to travel to a different state. But in terms of
Interesting.
food and takeaway lunches and dinners,
Yeah.
we are still able to go out. But at the moment, the government is again trying to stop people from doing that. And so there are roadblocks with police officers and sometimes the army asking as to why you're leaving the house. And if there is more than one people in the car, then you get more scrutiny. So
Interesting.
they are trying a
Yeah.
lot, trying a lot to try to, again, minimize contact from person to person that's not within the same household. And there's
Yeah.
also text messages being sent intermittently from the government and from the Ministry of Health, again, trying to encourage people to self-isolate, to keep their social distancing, and also more importantly now than ever, it's to try not to be involved in spreading fake information, especially with this pandemic and the fear surrounding this pandemic is going across the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Guys, can you tell that he's a doctor? You know your stuff, man. I'm fingers crossed everything gets solved sooner rather than later. I mean, just truly such a crazy time. Was it tough getting a flight back to the UK? Like, where are you flying out of?
So I'm flying out from Kuala Lumpur, and I was actually meant to leave last week, but my initial flight was cancelled.
Okay.
And so I rebooked it for tomorrow with a different airline carrier, which was Emirates, who last week informed everyone that they've had to take the decision to to ground all their flights as well.
Yeah.
But thankfully, there are still some flights available. So tomorrow I'll be flying directly from Kuala Lumpur back to London via
Yeah.
Malaysia Airlines. And I think it's still going. So hopefully it shouldn't be a problem
Yeah,
returning
fingers crossed,
to
man.
work in the UK. Yeah,
It's so
thank
crazy.
you.
There's
Yeah.
some flights that you're able to track the flights in the air. There's hardly any. I mean, of course, the United States is the one place that has a lot over each country, its country, but the rest of the world, it's crazy to look at. It's just a very, very empty planet when it comes to flights right now. So
Yes.
okay, one other question. Are there any specific products in Malaysia that are selling out at grocery stores? Anything flying off the shelf, specifically in that region?
Yeah, I don't think so. I've not really been outside as much
Yeah.
because most of I'm living with family and I don't have a car myself, and so my dad has been the one who has been going primarily to the groceries and the shopping
Yep.
markets to purchase goods, but we haven't struggled in finding things that we needed
That's good.
during the
Yeah,
last
that's
2 weeks. So it hasn't been awful, and there have been a few funny stories which have come out because usually it's the woman who goes out to the markets to purchase groceries, but because of the whole travel ban and the need to self-isolate, the husband has been sent outside to purchase groceries for the family's behalf. And so there have been a lot of confusion as to what has been written on the
interesting.
grocery list and what
Yeah,
actually has been
yeah,
brought
yeah.
back. But
Big change.
for us, there hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, interesting. Well, let's dive into travel. And I mean, we can focus on Malaysia as a whole, or even specifically Borneo. Borneo has so much to do. So, in your opinion, what are the top three places that are must-sees in Malaysia?
So I think, like you said, Malaysia is just an incredible place, and often it's overshadowed by its little sister, Singapore, or its bigger brother, Thailand, as
Right.
being travel destinations of choice. But again, Malaysia is just an incredible place. There are fantastic cultural sites like Malacca and Penang, and fantastic architecture. If you just go around Kuala Lumpur, there's just so much there in terms of fantastic buildings, and even the nightlife there is great as well. But
Yep.
if one is more enthused by wildlife and the outdoors. There's multiple national parks and beaches and islands to explore, like Philippines. So there's just so many places. And even in my hometown or my home state, we've got Mount Kinabalu, which is the country's tallest mountain. That's a great expedition for 2 days in terms of anyone who wants to climb a mountain. And then multiple beaches for people to scuba dive. We've got Sipadan on the east side of the coast, which is just second to the Great Barrier Reef if someone is keen on scuba diving. So there's just a multitude of places that people can explore. And we've got orangutans as well in rehabilitation centers. And so if you want to have a look at how orangutans live, or people are trying to get them out into the wild again, that's another great place to explore. So there's just so many places that people
There's loads of places to go. Absolutely.
Yeah, for different interests, So I think I definitely encourage everyone to explore Malaysia.
Yeah, I second that, guys. I unfortunately missed Borneo my first time going through Southeast Asia. Didn't miss it my second, and the amount of species they have on that island are just fat in front, like proboscis monkeys, again orangutans.
Yes.
Like there's so many species that are only unique to that area. So if you love wildlife, seriously, Borneo is one of the. I mean, in my opinion, it ranks up there with the Amazon. It ranks up there with even Antarctica when it comes to wildlife. There's just such unique species that you only get to see there. So worth a visit when you're in Southeast Asia. And you made a very good point. Is Malaysia can quickly be overlooked. There are a lot of destinations, and it's a very well kept secret because I don't know, I think people just don't realize, maybe they don't know that Borneo is part of it, or when they're looking on a map, they just don't realize it's part of the country. So it's but now Borneo is split with 3 countries. It's Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. Correct. But we really traveled a lot. Like Bako National Park, it's a national park down the southern part of the Malaysia tip of Borneo, where you can only take boats in to this national park. So there are some really special places in Malaysia that are quite untraveled. So if you want to get away from the crowds, Malaysia is a good place to go. How about food? What is your favorite? Any specific meals to Malaysia? If you had to eat one Malaysian dish the rest of your life, what are you going for?
Yeah. So again, one of the reasons people would travel around Malaysia is because of food. Because of its history, it's a multi-ethnic country with a lot of Chinese and Indian influence. And so again, from the food scene, there's certainly something for everyone. It's unique in terms of its taste, its fusion. And so I think for me, the thing that I would always definitely have when I come back to Malaysia is nasi lemak, which is the country's national dish. To put it simply, it's rice that's bathed in coconut milk. It's got peanuts. It's got a very special sauce called sambal, which is slightly spicy, slightly sweet, and it's often topped with either eggs with cucumbers or fried chicken or beef. So again, it's just one of those things which is incredible. And to top that up as a drink, you can't go wrong with teh tarik, which is like Indian chai, but it's got a little bit of foam at the top of it. So that's just the perfect way to start your day if you're ever in Malaysia.
No, it sounds like it. Yeah, and there was no shortage of restaurants in Kuala Lumpur. There was some good street markets there. A lot to choose from. Yeah, heck, even I think it was the weekend market in Kota Kinabalu was. We got to visit that. That is a fun event as well. So yeah, lots of food to choose from. For my next question, I got something in mind. We'll see if you pick up on it as well. Weirdest food you can eat in Malaysia?
Yeah. So again, this has to come back to my hometown of Kota Kinabalu. Again, going back to the whole multi-ethnic diversity picture and background. So we have a lot of local indigenous tribes in Malaysia, especially in Borneo. And so one of the things that I've got to try recently is something called butok wen. I'm not sure whether you had it, Brent. When you
I did. Oh, yes. There was no way I was going to miss that. My couch tripping host, shout out to Rita, who was phenomenal. We were first guests ever. She took us to the restaurant to make sure we had it.
Yeah, these are essentially larvae, which eventually grow to become beetles. But they were previously commonly consumed as a source of protein by the local Kadazan tribe. And so we have a few Kadazan restaurants, but there's one that most people would go to and visit, which would offer butot worms, and they're often either eaten live or they can be fried and and mixed with some other things to try to hide its unique smell and taste. It's definitely a very weird experience, and trying it when it's alive and wiggling in the mouth. It's
Did you
got
eat it alive?
very correct. Yes, I
Okay,
did,
good.
and it has
Yeah.
very sharp pincers, so you have to be very careful with the
Yeah.
pincers as well when you're trying to take hold of it. But it's definitely the weirdest thing. Most of the other food in Malaysia is definitely more tame than that. I can
Yeah,
attest
yeah,
to
yeah,
that.
yeah. Guys, and these grubs, I mean, they're decent size. It's what do you
Very
think of it?
juicy.
It's almost like an oversized gusher, except it's not a fruity flavor. It's
Yeah,
more of a milky gush when you bite into these moving
correct.
grubs.
Yeah,
Worth doing that restaurant. I remember they had it for pizza as well as sushi, and then you get it fried or straight up. Highly encourage you
yes.
do the live one. That's the do as the locals, and that's gonna be the best experience. And it's just one of those things, mind over matter. Glad I did it. Would I do it again? Yeah, possibly. If I had a group of friends with us, a couple beers down, absolutely would have to do it again. So let's dive into stereotypes. Any stereotypes come to mind that are true and false for Malaysia?
Yeah, so like I said, because Malaysia is often not in most people's radar when it comes to Southeast Asia. So there are not many international stereotypes that can be associated with Malaysia. The only thing that people may, because they've not heard of Malaysia, what they might think or perceive is that Malaysia is a very backward country, that people are still living on top of trees, perhaps,
Mm,
and they don't have clothes to wear. That may be the general perception of Malaysia, but actually Malaysia is one of the tigers when it comes to economy in the Southeast Asia region. It's got a very good working economical relationship with Singapore and Thailand, and it's got very large manufacturing business as well. So Malaysia is definitely not as backward as people think. It's a very developed, very peaceful country
yep.
that people should come and enjoy and visit, and it's definitely very geared to tourism as well. There are places that people can come, and there are infrastructure in place for tourists and travelers, and everyone, or most people, I would say, speak English. Again, this is
Yep.
born out of the diversity that comes in Malaysia.
No, definitely. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Any other? You have a list or anything else? I think that covers it
So
quite well.
yeah, so I mean, again, political corruption is one of those things that unfortunately is fairly rife in Malaysia.
Yep.
And I think I want to highlight something here, actually. So prior to the whole coronavirus pandemic that happened, and before this took place, Malaysia was actually going through a very difficult political crisis where there was a very quick change in government. And
Yep.
there was a lot of questions being asked as to how Malaysia would deal with it from a political stance. But actually, I personally felt that the Malaysian government has been, the new Malaysian government, I would say, the new coalition has been very swift in terms of taking very difficult actions. But obviously, you and I both know that even when the COVID-19 pandemic disappear, there's a lot of economical repercussions that will come
Right.
with it. And so it's just trying to see how this government will act and react to the volatility that will happen, certainly will
No, definitely.
happen
Yeah. Yeah.
in the coming months or years.
Well, it's nice to have a government that acknowledged it. Indonesia has run into quite a horrible situation where their president officially
Right.
announced that he was denying that the cases have even made it to his country. So, hopefully Malaysia, it seems like Malaysia is way more on top of it versus, one of your partners in the island of Borneo, where it seems like, especially in Bali, they're really playing catch up right now, which is a scary
Right.
situation because who knows when they'll be able to open back up for business.
Mm,
Um,
correct.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to. I really didn't know that much politically about Malaysia. So yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. They seem to be doing well. Let's hope this border shutdown works well. So you guys
Mm.
can open the borders back up and get some of these viewers to view your country. So what about what? I mean, we've talked about a lot of amazing things. What's if you had to name your one favorite thing about your country? What would it be?
I would say definitely the diversity that we have in Malaysia. Again, born down by the history of Malaysia. Like everyone here um, can can probably speak more than one language, which is pretty awesome. We're
It's
all educated in at least two languages when we're in school, and then we speak our mother tongue at home and to our friends. So people here in Malaysia, wherever you go, will probably speak English because it's taught, it's a compulsory subject in school up to the age of 16 or 17. So it's a great place because one of the interesting characteristics that happens in Singapore is, I'm not sure whether you've caught on, is that people love using mixing different languages into sentences.
yes,
Yes, yeah. Like you have the sentence when they're ordering food, for instance, in a hawker store, where there's Malay, English, a dialect in Chinese, and then another dialect in Chinese, and to top it all up, a bit of Tamil for good measure. And it's just that it's a funny example, but it really highlights that we have strength in diversity, and I really hope that Malaysia, as we progress, that we use this and utilize this strength as we carry it forward. So yeah, that's one of the things I love about Malaysia, and it's one of those things that draws me back to Malaysia and makes me fall in love again when I come back to this country.
no, definitely, yeah, yeah. A lot of cultures, a lot of languages, and yeah, one of those places that you shouldn't be afraid to travel to. A lot of people are always concerned about a language barrier. There's hardly one in Malaysia, so don't let that
Mm,
stop you. Don't let that hold you back from coming to this part of Asia. All right,
yeah,
one final question for you. What's one fact about Malaysia that you think would surprise people?
it's the only country which has a rotating constitutional monarchy.
Huh.
So
So
like so so I can explain it a little bit further. So imagine there is a king or a queen, but usually a
yeah,
king in Malaysia. But unlike unlike the UK or the Netherlands or Monaco, where there is a head of state, which is the king or the queen, which will be passed on to another person when they abdicate or when they pass away. The way that it works in Malaysia is that crown is shared between nine sultans in the country.
huh.
So they'll take turns every 5 years, or when someone does abdicate, to go and rotate to become the head of state of Malaysia.
Interesting. And it stays within those nine families.
Correct. Well, there's actually more than nine families.
Okay.
It gets a bit more complicated than that. So in Malaysia, again, because of the history of it, we have nine Malay states, which all nine Malay states would have a king or a sultan or whatever you like to call them.
Yeah.
But in some particular states, there are more than just one royal family. And so in those states, they will rotate
Interesting.
amongst themselves to become the
Jeez. Yeah.
head of state for that particular state. And then combine Malaysia together. All these royal families will rotate to become the Agong, or the head of Malaysia.
Yeah. Yeah. That is fast. And it's every 5 years they rotate.
Correct. Usually, yes, yes.
That is fascinating. Very good fun fact. I had no idea. That is wow. Very, very interesting. Is it always peaceful when they're passing the? I mean, they're all on board for it.
Yeah, I have not heard of any sort of, there are no obvious open disgruntlement
Yeah.
since Malaysia's independence. And I think it has been agreed during Malaysia's independence, or Malaya's independence in the 1950s, that this was going to be the model. in order for everyone to have a share of that power.
That is wild. Wow. And clearly it's working. So far so
Yep,
good.
yep,
What a model. Very, very interesting. I've got a fun fact when it comes to Singapore and Malaysia. So Singapore does not have, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been told Singapore purchases raw water from Malaysia. They don't have enough water reservoirs here, so Singapore will purchase their water from Malaysia, treat it, and then send some of that treated water back to Malaysia, sell it back. So
yes,
it's a nice little business model for these two countries getting along as well. So pretty
yes.
interesting on that aspect. So, well, Nate, I know this is your last day in country. I want you to spend those last few minutes, last few hours with your family. Stage is yours. Any parting words to tell the world, since every person will be watching this episode?
Yeah, so I think I think whilst we're going through this very difficult time for everyone, it's again very important to count your blessings and be grateful for things that you have. For me, whilst being stuck in isolation in the last 2 weeks, just being able to spend time with family and eating a lot of good food at home, and just being grateful that there's a roof on top of me as well. So I think just counting one's blessings and knowing that all of this will pass, and when it does pass, just carry on traveling and carry on exploring and carry on visiting different cultures to understand yourself better and to understand the world better.
Well, amen to that, man. I second everything you just said. So safe travels back to the UK. Stay safe, and we'll be in touch. Hopefully things go smoothly and that flight does take off. And so,
Cheers.
guys, with that, that's the end of episode 15. Wow, we are cruising. So this evening here in Asia, tomorrow morning in the United States, we will be taking you to Delhi, India, which is, again, one of the biggest countries in the world when it comes to population. And we're going to see just how India is doing with their full country lockdown. Very interesting time. And then in 24 hours, we'll be talking to one of my friends. We'll go back to Central America and head to Costa Rica. So, guys, with that, stay safe, stay at home, stay inside, wash your hands, and let's get through this together. Nate, thanks so much, man. Safe travels, and we'll
Thanks for
see you
having me.
again, no doubt in my mind.